Well, Heat fans, the
Boston Celtics are about to win the NBA championship.
I couldn't even get myself to say it. I had to let the AI do it for me. And just for some context, I'm recording this on Thursday night. Game 4 is on Friday night, so I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's very likely we'll have the final result by the end of tonight. And I could take the approach of a lot of Heat fans and say, oh, what a wasted opportunity by the Miami Heat. This was an Eastern Conference they could have dominated in. Pat Riley should have woken up years ago. We should have got Porzingis for the low. And that is actually something that I said a year ago. I wanted Porzingis even over Bradley Beal, and I was right on that. But regardless, I don't want to be negative. The Florida Panthers just went up 3-0 against the Edmonton Oilers, so you know I'm feeling good, and I want to be positive in this video. So instead, I'll say Porzingis is an injury-prone bum. Drew Holiday, that's not Pat Riley's fault. Joe Cronin was just being petty. I'll say, I'm glad we don't have Derek White. I couldn't stand to watch his ugly ass on my television every night. And I'll say, Jason Tatum is a soft bum. Soft bum. That sounds kind of sus. You know what I mean, though. The man is shooting under 40% in the NBA Finals. Ew. And I'll say Jaylen Brown is an overpaid bum who can't go left. Damn, maybe I'm the petty one. Anyways, what I want to look at in this video is how the Heat are not as far away from the Celtics as you may think. And it's not necessarily because I'm expecting the Heat to make a drastic improvement or trade for a whale this offseason. I certainly think they might and they could, but that's not the definite part. What I think is the definite part is that we are very close from this whole Celtics core essentially falling apart because there's a such thing called the salary cap. Right now, you're looking at the Celtics 2024-2025 cap sheet, which is for next season, and just look at those first 5 names they have on there. You got almost $50 million to Jaylen Brown, $35 million to Tatum, $30 to Drew, $30 to Porzingis, $20 to Derek White, and when you have that much money tied up into the top guys on your team, it's very hard to maintain that and fill out the rest of the roster, even though they still have a couple other nice young players like Peyton Pritchard, they got Sam Hauser, obviously they still got Al Horford there as well. But the most important part of this sheet that I want you to pay attention to is look at the top right there. It says second apron space negative $2.9 million. And not to mention, they're almost $14 million over the first apron too, but who isn't? I mean, the Heat are over that too. But it's that second apron number that should be very, very concerning for Celtics fans. Because if you're not aware, in this new CBA, there is very harsh penalties starting next season for being over the second apron. Now, there's a lot, but they include your first round pick 7 years out can't be traded. And for a team like the Celtics that has a lot of picks, that is something that does hinder them. Teams can no longer use their mid-level exception. That's more of a slap on the wrist, I'd say. Sometimes you get some good players, but that's not as big a deal. This one is very crazy, though. It says if a team remains in the second apron 3 out of 5 seasons, the first round pick will be automatically moved to the end of the first round, beginning the next season. Which you could argue that's not as big a deal because let's say that the Celtics are always good. Who cares if their first round pick goes from 28 to 30? It's not a big deal. But there's no guarantee there. And if you have a first round pick, let's say the Celtics, and this says 3 out of 5 years. So right now the Celtics are over the second apron. They might be the year after that and the year after that. Next thing you know, they lose a bunch of guys, and the following year they suck. And they don't get their high first round pick. It drops to the end of the entire first round. They pick 30. That's a very crazy and harsh penalty there. I don't know if we'll ever see something like that. Again, it's 3 out of 5 seasons. They just initiated this rule, so it'll take, obviously, at least 5 seasons to kind of see if teams are penalized by that and kind of the ramifications of that. But that is a wild rule. Even more importantly, teams over the second apron cannot combine outgoing salaries in a trade. Meaning if the Celtics want to make a trade, maybe to even offload one of their guys, it can only be one player at a time. Meaning if they want to trade Al Horford and another player to bring back salary, they can't. They can only ship out one player at a time, and for obvious reasons, that dramatically limits how a team can improve. Additionally, they can't get players via sign and trade. that further hinders their ability to improve. They cannot use any trade exceptions they have. They can't use cash in trades. And then this one is pretty important too. They can essentially only make trades in which they receive equal salary in return. Meaning if they were to trade Jaylen Brown, they need someone who makes exactly as much as Jaylen Brown or less, I guess, right? Does that make sense? Exactly as much as Jaylen Brown or less, because they'd be taking back less money. Yeah, or less in order to make a deal. And that's tough, because a lot of times when you accept a trade, you can accept back a little bit more money. You see, as it says here, you can actually accept back 125% of what you're sending out. Obviously, if you were over the cap before, you'd still be over the cap, but they allow you just to pay a little bit more in luxury tax. But teams over the second apron cannot do that. So I know these rules might be confusing. I'm sure we'll all learn more as you know, the years go on with this new, CBA initiated. But the point is, it is very difficult to improve a team and build a team when you're over the second apron. That's something that should be avoided at all costs from every team, unless you're on the verge of an NBA championship. I should make that clear too. The Celtics are doing the right thing, and if they win the championship, then 100% paying the second apron is worth it. Even if your team sucks for the next decade, anything you got to do to win a championship is worth it. So I don't blame the Celtics. I think they made the right moves. But going forward, they will be in trouble, and that's why I think the Miami Heat can kind of take advantage of that. I found this interesting Reddit post from the beginning of the season. Shout out to _sportologist, and they basically took a whole look at the Celtics cap situation. It was a long thing. I did read it, to kind of familiarize myself with the second apron. But to summarize it for you guys, they put a too long didn't read that says the Celtics have their books loaded with big contracts. It's not a problem this season, but they'll likely have to deal with the second apron penalties next year. And then it does end it by saying in the summer of 2025, some major trades will be needed in order to alleviate their payroll. So that's why I want to pull up this table here. This is the multi-year table for the Boston Celtics. And what this is kind of saying is, obviously this year, they can afford it. They can also afford it next year. But it's the year after that where things will start to fall apart. Because look at the numbers here. In the next season, they'd already, not next season. I'm talking the season after that. They'd already be losing Derek White, meaning they could not afford to keep him because he'd be an unrestricted free agent. Al Horford would be an unrestricted free agent as well, but he's a guy that might resign for a minimum or something like that. But essentially, they're gonna have 4 players essentially, and they're gonna be over the salary cap, over the first apron. So it's gonna be very difficult to keep a lot of these guys. And in that 2025 season as well, Jason Tatum has a player option in which he will decline, and obviously also want a max extension. So you have to also include a Jason Tatum max extension into this, which is likely going to be even more than what Jaylen Brown is currently getting paid. So I know this is a bit confusing here, but look how much money they have tied up in Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, and then once Jason Tatum gets his extension. They're going to have money tied up for at least the next 4 seasons and their top 3 guys, and be strictly prohibited in making their team any better at all. So that's kind of the point of this whole conglomeration here. They even got Peyton Pritchard, who's going to be making $7 to $8 million, which is a lot when you're already that much over the salary cap here. Now, there is one thing I read that could help the Celtics. There's a new TV deal that is pretty big, obviously, and it should up the salary cap a little bit, but it's not going to quite alleviate all of the Celtics' problems here. Now, I know this might be a little confusing, but the point is the Celtics will need to make moves, because even if they go into next year, Derek White is an expiring contract. Are they going to lose him for nothing? Maybe, because they want to go all in to win a ring next year, to go back-to-back, likely. Or do they want to try to trade him to get some assets back? They have some tough decisions that need to be made, and they will be losing a lot of guys. Now, the Miami Heat, there is a lot of options to catch up and surpass them. We've talked about the Whales a ton. Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, Lauri Markkanen. Absolutely love those guys. But there's even more realistic options like DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, Zach LaVine. I think any one of those guys could put the Heat over the top as it is, let alone once the Celtics start losing guys. Truthfully, if Jimmy Butler was healthy and Terry Rozier was healthy, I might have picked the Miami Heat to beat the damn Celtics this year. I'm not going to lie to you. But now you're saying that the Heat have an avenue to improve, and the Celtics' inevitable fall is coming soon. It is inevitable. then I think the Miami Heat are not in as bad a position as a lot of people think. I also have their cap table up here. Now, like the Boston Celtics, I should point out, they also have a lot of money tied up into their top 5 guys here. Jimmy Butler, Bam, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, and Duncan Robinson. And I also want to note that, look at the second apron number here. They still are over $4.5 million under the second apron, unlike the Boston Celtics. So the Heat are not in a lot of danger there. And they're only $6 million over the first apron. But that would include if Caleb Martin picked up his $7 million option next season. So if Caleb does opt out of that, and I'm expecting him to re-sign elsewhere for more money, now the Heat are not only under the second apron, they are under the first apron as well. So they will have a lot more flexibility than the Boston Celtics. Of course, the Heat will still have to fill out their roster, so it's likely they end up pushing over that first apron again. But as of right now, they're not in as much of a salary cap, trouble. They're not in as much cap trouble as the Celtics are. And I have their multi-year table pulled up here as well. Well, you can see they are kind of losing a lot of money this year. Caleb Martin could likely walk. Hayward Highsmith is obviously not here. He's a free agent. So they are getting some money off the books. And then in that following season, you also have Duncan Robinson's almost $20 million on a player option. And if he continues to improve the way he did last year, I also think he would opt out and want to re-sign somewhere with more money, longer term deal, that sort of thing. So the point of this whole sheet here is to say that I think the Heat have tradable contracts, because Duncan Robinson, yes, he's under deal next season, but he would be essentially an expiring contract because of the player option the following season. Terry Rozier, same thing. He's under contract for this season, and then he would be expiring the next season, though. So it's not super long multi-year deals. Tyler Hero is kind of the one that might be the hardest to trade because he's got 3 more years at about $30 million. But I still think he's good enough to at least also get you a first-round pick. I've made a ton of videos about that as well. I think teams like the Chicago Bulls could be interested. The Orlando Magic is my favorite to land Tyler Hero because those teams have salary cap space and they can absorb Hero's contract without having to send back equal money. And like I said, I still think his value is still there. That's why the Terry Rozier trade that we made last year, it's not as bad, because I still think we could trade him to get a first-round pick back, which is kind of what we gave up to get him. So the Heat do have some movable contracts here where I don't think the Celtics do. I mean, not with the money that those top guys are making, over $50 million. I mean, Porzingis, the Celtics got first-round picks and Porzingis because he was looked at as a negative asset. Has he recouped his trade value? I don't think so. The question with Porzingis was never his game, his talent. It was the injuries. And here he is in the NBA playoffs and NBA finals, can't play, hurt, has a rare injury again. So I don't think he has a lot of trade value either, because he's a guy that's also getting paid $30 million next season and the year after that. So all of this just to say, I think the Heat are in a much better financial situation than the Celtics. Now, would I rather be the Celtics? You're damn right, because they're on the verge of an NBA championship, and that's what matters at the end of the day. And I'm not saying the Miami Heat are cheap and the only important thing is saving money here. No, if the Heat can build a contender, then they will certainly go over the first and second apron if they have to. My point is, they are in a spot now under the apron or just over the first apron where they can put their team in a position to build a contender, to then pay the big luxury tax and the penalties and then try to win a championship. Now, all of this does have to be done within the next couple of seasons, because who knows how much longer. We still got Jim VP playoff level Jimmy Butler. I don't know. But the point is, I do think there's an avenue there for the Heat to be for the Heat to surpass the Celtics much sooner than later. Anyways, that was a lot of talk going on here. I hope I didn't ramble too much and you kind of got a grip of what I was saying. I'm still trying to learn this new CBA salary cap stuff myself as well. If you got to this point of the video, comment Derek White got a big ass forehead, and I'll favorite y'all comments, shout y'all out. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, because we less than 800 away from 5,000. And tomorrow I think I'm gonna have a podcast come out, like a full-length podcast, just to talk to y'all about everything, because there's a lot going on. Anyways, shout out to Florida Panthers. I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.